One of the trickiest things to work out is how much to charge somebody for a piece of art that you're producing for them. Here's a rough guide on what you should be thinking about when somebody asks you for a commission. A few bits of housekeeping. I'll be giving all the figures in pounds, that's Great British pounds. That's what I know, that's what I can give a point of advice on. I'll be focusing more on artwork and crafts rather than my video work. Video work is a lot more structured and tiered. The rates are a bit more set. Commission work is a bit more hazy and hard to judge. That's what I'll be focusing on in this video today. I'm going to be assuming the case of somebody that wants to make this their full-time job, but if it's not your full-time job, then there should still be some informative points for you. When I say client, I'm going to be referring to anybody that asks you for a commission, whether that's a big global conglomerate or your auntie. The two questions you should be asking yourself when somebody asks for a commission are, is this something I love doing? And if it's not, how much should I be charging to make it worth doing? This means instantly that if somebody asks me to work for free, I'm asking myself, is this something I love doing? There are occasional times when it is good to work for free. The first priority has to be when you can afford to do so. Secondly, if it's a friend or might lead on to projects that you love. But the priority is that you can afford to do so. If you can't, then it's tricky to take on that work. Paying the bills is obviously the number one factor. I'll likely make a separate video on when it's okay to work for free, but in most cases, 80 to 90%, you probably shouldn't. So who's the person asking you to do the work for them? If it's a family member or it's a friend, sometimes it's okay to just do a piece of work for them. It's not the end of the world. The only thing to watch out for is that if your calendar gets full of favours, you're not going to have any time to do any paid work, so be careful of that. If a family member or a friend asks you for something for free and you say, I'm sorry, I don't have the time or I can't afford the time, they will most likely completely understand. They may even offer you some money to make it worth your time. Don't feel too bad about it. The priority is making sure that this is sustainable for you. If a larger company is asking you for something like a logo or some branding, think about the value that you're going to be adding to that company. Depending on the size of the company and also the size of the artist to a degree, you can charge a premium rate because that company stands to make a lot of money from what you're producing for them. Therefore, you should be making quite a lot of money as well. It's always a good idea if you're unsure to check if they're using what you're making for them for commercial purposes. If it is, you should definitely be getting paid for that work. Another factor is, what is the project? Is this something I enjoy doing? Is this something I want to be doing more of? Is it something that's going to help me get more of that type of work in the future? If it is, you can charge a little bit less in order to get that work and be able to showcase it later on. Sometimes it's worth taking on work a little cheaper if that's the direction that you want yourself to go in. If it's not something you want to be doing, then charge a little bit more. In the worst case, they'll say no, in which case you've lost nothing. And in the best case, they'll say yes, in which case you've earned a lot more money that can be used as a buffer for when you're not working later on. Don't feel too bad about losing that business or turning down jobs. That's just more time to put towards the stuff that you love. You want to be doing what you love doing, and if you're taking on work that you don't like for money that isn't worth it, the worst thing that can happen is that someone else later comes with work you do want and you've already committed to something else. Another factor is time. If somebody offers me £200 for something that takes me a day, that's obviously going to be much better than somebody offering me the same amount of money for something that takes me 2 weeks to produce. It's really important to correctly estimate how long your work takes to complete. In the case that you can't be completely sure, and it does happen, guess as closely as you can and then add anywhere between 50 to 100% extra time on top of that. That gives you extra thinking time, very important, gives you time for revisions, which is something that the client may want as well, and also it's really good for managing expectations to the client. It's always better to deliver the product earlier than they expected rather than much later. To get the bare minimum that you need to be charging, the amount you cannot charge less than, think about all of the outgoings that are going to be going out of your account each month. Things like rent, food, bills, leisure money, parking ticket fines, library fee fines, everything that's going to be leaving your account, you need to be able to make up for every single month, plus surplus for living and actually saving a bit of money as well. The sum of all of that will give you how much at least you need to be earning per month. Divide that by 4 and you can get a weekly cost. Divide that by 5 again and you can get a daily cost. And if you really want, you can divide it by 8 again and you can get roughly how much you should be charging per hour. 2 things to remember here: that should be the minimum cost. You want to be living comfortably, not just getting by. And secondly, you're not going to be working every single day of the month, so you need to charge enough for you to offset the days that you're not working as well. Remember also, you should add in time for revisions because the client normally wants something adjusted after the first draft. make sure you allocate enough time for that in your budget as well. Connected to that is the deadline that the client needs. If you haven't got much work on, or the project sounds really cool, or the person is somebody you know or would like to know, occasionally it's worth taking on work for a bit cheaper in order to get that work in the first place. But always make sure that you can deliver that product on time. If their deadline is tight, or the deadline is shorter than the amount of time that you need to make the product, you can charge a rush fee. That's a percentage of anywhere from 10% up to 100% again, in order to turn around the product faster than you feel comfortable doing. Anytime that a job impacts on sleep, anytime a job impacts on social hours, put a rush fee on it. If they say yes, you've earned a lot of money doing so, and if they say no, then you've saved yourself a lot of stress and lost sleep as well. If your calendar really is quite full, then apologize to the client and don't take the work on. It looks good for you in two different ways. Firstly, you look honest and realistic, and secondly, you look really in demand. If the deadline is not set and they don't have a specific time that they need the product by, that's amazing, and you can fit it into when you're not working for a little bit cheaper. I've left the most important and most obvious one till last, and that is, what is the fee? The thing is, we all have bills to make, and without considering the fee first and foremost, you're doing yourself a disservice. You cannot make a career for yourself if you're constantly taking on work that isn't paid. We do have to make money from it. We have to make money from it. You cannot pay rent with exposure. If the client offers you a budget of what they're willing to spend, that's incredibly helpful. You can scale what you're making to fit that budget to make sure it's worth it for you and still what the client is after as well. Always, always, always ask what the client's budget is first before quoting your own. Okay, that should be about, I don't know, £500? Oh, really? Oh, great. Wait, how much do you think it would? Oh, yeah, like £500. Now, hang on a minute. You're happy that I charged you that much? Oh, you said it now. I'm sorry. Wait a minute. No, well, that was fun. If they give you a figure, they've shown you their cards, and you can work out a realistic fee to match that. If the fee is excellent, consider taking on work you wouldn't normally complete, as long as obviously you can still do it and you can do it well enough to justify how much they're paying you. Taking on well-paid work that isn't completely what you want to be doing can sometimes be good if it gives you buffer time later down the line. Okay, so with all of that, let's do an example. I have a design business that's just starting up. My uncle works at a medium-sized business and wants a new logo for his company. He's not the owner, but he's pretty high up. He needs it for this weekend. He gives a rough fee of £1,500, doesn't have ideas for what he wants, and needs a quote from you. How much do you charge? Okay, so what we need to know before is what our minimum cost is. Let's say, for argument's sake, that my rent and my bills and everything else comes to £1,600 each month that I need to be earning. I work in London, and that is the minimum you need to live, trust me. That's £400 a week, which is £80 a day, which is £10 an hour. Remember, that is the minimum you should be charging, and you should be charging more because you're not going to be working every single day of the month. So if 80 is my minimum, let's begin with double that and work up and down from there. We're not established yet, so we can't charge our work at a premium. The work is for my uncle, so it's somebody that I might know quite well, but it's not as close as, say, my parents or a sibling. It's still a professional relationship, as it's not his own company, but he's got some influence there, and that may be able to get me some more work in the future. So reasons for it being cheaper and reasons for charging more offset itself to about 160 a day still. The company is a medium-sized business, so my yachts will have to wait on this one, but they will have some money for marketing. That will push it up a little. The fact that their logo is quite a valuable asset to their company and they stand to make a lot of money from it, I would push my day rate up to about 250 to 300 a day for that. So if we're a little bit cheeky and we say £300 a day, how long is that going to take me to do? He doesn't have ideas for the logo he needs, so I'd have to spend, say, 3 days working on what the idea would be with him, and then about 3 days producing that logo and going through revisions with him as well. So if we say 6 days work at £300 a day, that comes to £1,800. But remember, he needs it for this weekend, and if we say that this work came in on Monday morning, that's still only 5 days that we can work on this. So that still means I'm going to be working unsociable hours to make this happen for him. 5 days isn't a huge amount, smaller than 6 days, but I will add a 20% surcharge as a rush fee on top of that £1,800 to bring me up to £2,160. Usually what would happen at that point, if I quoted that, is that they would probably come back with, well, we only have about £1,500 to spare. Would you be able to find a middle ground? Is it worth me doing that? In this case, because it's my uncle, it could lead to more work, and in 6 days I would have made my complete minimum amount that I would need to make for that month, plus a little bit more. I would consider saying yes to this work. Obviously, with your cases, there are going to be times when that amount of money will either be ridiculous, either it will be way too much or way too little, but using all of those different factors to make a balanced judgment should help you give a roughly correct estimate that's worth it for the client and also worth it for yourself. and that is the thought process that I go through when quoting somebody for a piece of my work. I wanted to show you the honest thought pattern that we go through when we're charging people for a piece of work. I hope that was helpful. Do let me know. I'll see you next time.